If you've been following the Knicks at all, you know this is an extended conversation that you've probably been having or seeing people have for about 72 hours at this point, or something close to that. Andrew Claudio is here, first time on the channel. You know him from Knicks Film School, from other places as well. But for the purposes of this conversation, we are getting him from Knicks Film School because Andrew needs your Knicks opinions,
Mm.
expertise, analysis, things of that nature. Um, as you're aware, the season ended
What?
on
Where was
Saturday.
where was I for this
Crazy.
development? Man,
um, they lost to the Pacers in the Eastern Conference Finals, and we will have some of these similar talking points that are going around. I feel like we'll do it in a more elevated way, but flat out the gate, success or failure on this season, because I think there's a bit of nuance to this. I think, or both. You could also say both. I will allow both as an answer.
also, if both is allowed to be an answer, you can look at it as a missed opportunity. They were up in the series. Well, they were up in game 1 when they were up in game 1 with the full backing of the city, full backing of the fan base, full backing of parts of the country, I think, that just wanted to see this Knicks run continue and
Seriously.
riding the wave and the high of that game 6 win in Boston. You could have rode that pretty far if you wanted to. If you just close out game 1, you're up 1-0 in the series. Say the Pacers win game 2, fine. They're supposed to win a game in this series. I thought the series was going 7. I thought the Knicks did enough to win 3 games in the series to at least get us to a game 7. But the way game 1 ended just completely just destroyed, evaporated all of those good feelings and good vibes. There was now an anxiousness anytime the Knicks were up, no matter how much they were up by, because you were waiting for the other shoe to drop and for the Pacers to come back. And it completely erased what those feelings were, and it set a tone for the rest of the series. And I say all of that because to answer your question, there's two different conversations here. There's the disappointment of losing the conference finals the way you did and the missed opportunity to get to the NBA finals and hang at least a banner, whether it be a conference championship banner or who knows what happens in the finals, and what other banner you could have hung. It's a missed opportunity. It is still an absolute success to dethrone the NBA champions and get to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years. It's a necessary step in this team's run. I'm understanding of all the questions you now have to ask going forward and where the level this team and the analysis needs to go. But I will never forget those 4 or 5 days after game 6 and what this city was like. And I think any Knicks fan that's trying to just further the conversation and say this whole season was a failure is forgetting and diminishing what that accomplishment was of beating Boston. So it is both. I lean more success than failure while recognizing the missed opportunity, Brian.
I think it's a successful season that ended in disappointment,
Ah,
which is allowed. I think because it can't not be successful if you beat the Celtics in the second round of the playoffs. The issue is then you're favored in the conference finals, and then you lose to honestly a team that was playing better. I think people have to accept that the Pacers are legitimate. Um, game 1 was game 1. I would say, hey, they did get game 3 back when it looked like they were going to go down 3-0 at one point, and karl-Anthony Towns bugged out in the fourth quarter and absolutely saved their season, or at least prolonged the series for a little bit longer. But I think it's a successful season because you get to the conference finals. Anytime you get to the conference finals for the first time in 25 years, and oftentimes when you get to the conference finals, period, it's a successful season. That's the best that they've done in a long, long time, as you know. And on top of that, you do beat the defending champions, and you were beating them before their best player unfortunately ruptured his Achilles. So I think with that, you also have the Pacers piece where it's like, yes, this was a winnable series, but I also think you go into next season understanding you're not that far off. Do you think I'm wrong by that?
I don't think they're that far off at all. These teams were separated by a couple of points total in this series. There's some margins that the Knicks lost. There's some margins that the Knicks won in this series. And again, I said it before, they did enough to win, to largely to win 3 games if they close out game 1. Like this was, I thought this was going 7. I never understood the Knicks in 5 stuff for the series because I looked at what the Pacers were. The Pacers haven't lost back-to-back games since early March. This is
Yeah.
on a roll at the moment. But what we did to the Boston Celtics, you have to also consider what the Pacers did to the Cavaliers. And if you're going to diminish what the Cavs were when you say, well, look at what happened to them with the injuries, and then we can then turn around and say, well, then we have to add in what happened to Jason Tatum because they did have that going on, and what happened to Porzingis and Jaylen Brown playing with the way he did, not diminishing what the Knicks accomplished, of course.
Correct.
But then you also have to qualify and respect what the Pacers have accomplished. And there's the other part of this, Brian. The Pacers made the conference finals last year. Experience is the best teacher. They knew how to handle these situations. They went through their heartbreaking game 1 loss and missed opportunities a year ago. I know we're going to talk about the head coach today, but
That's next.
one of the things I do subscribe to is you win or you learn. Nick's going to have to do some learning from this series. Now, do they learn with this head coach? That is a great question, and I'm sure you're about to ask it, but there is, in my opinion, some stock and a necessary teacher that you can take from this, that they got their first taste of the conference finals, and hopefully this team comes back next season with a hunger to get back to it and take this learning experience and use it for good.
All right, let's have the tips discussion.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Being the professional that you are, you teed this up. Okay. As you know, there's a lot of different angst about this situation in particular, whether or not Tibbs should stay or go. The case for feels like, hey, he got them to the next level. The case against was, hey, Rick Carlisle did some pretty special things in this series. I think Tibbs made some adjustments as well, even though some people would say he was late to them. Where do you fall on the Tibbs discussion? Do you think that despite the Knicks making the conference finals for the first time in 25 years, they need to change a head coach?
He really is an enigma to try to evaluate.
Yes.
Tom Thibodeau.
Yes.
Because look, to a lot of the Tom Thibodeau supporters, and I don't even know where I stand on this, because throughout the year I was very critical of him. I also, like, not everything is the head coach's fault, and I think there are extremes on both sides, where there's like a market for I know more than the head coach that a lot of people are taking advantage of right now, and I respect it. Fine. There's also a stubbornness of nothing is the head coach's fault that I think doesn't allow for the conversation to be had that humans are fallible. And he absolutely has made a lot of mistakes this year. I thought this was a rough conference finals for Tibbs. Yes, he adjusted, but they were like things that he probably should have been more prepared for coming into the series. And it's really a philosophy thing for me with Carlisle, that, or juxtaposed against Carlisle, where like Rick Carlisle's going in deep into his bench with Thomas Bryant and Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd and Tony Bradley.
Yeah.
And like it's game 3 and Tibbs is just now playing a 9th guy and Rick Carlisle's already tried 14. So,
and has been doing it all year.
So that's what I mean by the philosophy, where they spent this entire season just playing this mediocre starting 5 over and over and over again, the most possessions of anybody in the league, and it wasn't even a good starting 5. We never got to see the 5 out with Deuce in place of Josh Hart. As much as I think the cat defense stuff is being underplayed by that vocal portion of the fan base that you're talking about, I do recognize they never maximized Cat enough offensively to get the benefits of a Karl-Anthony Towns addition to your team. So I say all of this to say that, and I spoke a little bit about this on Game Theory with Sam Vecini last night. So I'll say it again. Like, if you call him a bad coach, you're kind of telling on yourself and your intelligence. If you think Tom Thibodeau is a bad coach, you don't get to where he is, accomplish what he's accomplished, win as many games as he's won, been a stability for 3 different franchises now, without the principles that he upholds, the low-hanging fruit that he really takes advantage of, no turnovers, free throws, playing hard, effort, that all of his teams are usually able to showcase. He has some flaws, and like every coach has flaws, and the further you get into the playoffs, those flaws get maximized. And his biggest flaw is inflexibility. Like, you need to be flexible to be able to go multiple places if something isn't working, and not just, hey guys, if you just keep at it, you'll figure it out,
Right.
rather than trying other things. And that inflexibility, unfortunately, gets magnified the further into the playoffs you go against another team that has all these different options ready to go. So I think it's very clear he got outcoached in the conference finals. It's very disappointing that, like, you, to your point, that this is how this season ends. I would welcome a new head coach if they decided to do it. I'm not as adamant as you need to do this. I don't necessarily know that they need a new head coach, an offensive coordinator, even though I don't think he would listen to anybody that they brought in to be an offensive coordinator.
I was thinking of that too.
So it's every conversation I've had with people that know how the Knicks operate. Like, the whole Johnny Bryant thing is always so fascinating to me. Johnny Bryant never called a play for the New York Knicks, according to what I've been told.
Yeah.
Tibbs is not like a people person. He doesn't know how to interact with humans. He knows how to talk basketball and coach basketball.
Right.
And so he has assistants that are the human side of the coaching staff. And if you have an issue or something's going on in your life personally, you tell the assistant head coach. You go tell Mo Cheeks. You go tell Dice. You go tell Johnny Bryant. You go tell Rick Brunson. Leave Tibbs out of it, because he's watching film up at the Knicks practice facility for the 95th straight hour. And I say all of that because, like, I think it really is, if you want to shift in scheme, you do need a head coach. There's no addition to the staff to help upgrade. No, he's just, this is who he is. So I would welcome a change if they decided to go that way. It's very bold if after the first trip to the conference finals, you fire the head coach. And I think that is the retort, Brian. Like, if they decide to keep him, it's because scoreboard. Like, everybody keeps saying he can't take us to the next level. They've progressed further into the playoffs each of the last 3 years. Won 2 games in the second round against Miami. Won 3 games against Indiana in the second round last year. Made the conference finals and were 6 wins away from a championship this year. I would understand if he's earned another transaction cycle, but goes into next season recognizing you have to get to the finals. Like, that is the bare minimum that you've now set yourself up for. You have to make the NBA finals next year. And I would understand if that's the expectation, while also recognizing he probably has earned another transaction cycle.
Yeah, it's very wide ranging where things can go. My retort when people always ask for, hey, Tibbs should be fired, I'm like, okay, who's the coach?
Right.
Like, this is kind of where I land. Like, I don't think he's Rick Carlisle or Eric Spoelstra, but I do think he's in the top 6 or 8 or something along those lines. That feels right. He has a track record of success. He also has a track record of wearing out his welcome, all these different things. And I think because you're so close, it feels like you should keep him, given that he's the best coach that the organization's had, or at least the most successful coach the organization's had in 25 years or something like that. And I think if this were football, yeah, you'd probably bring in a new offensive coordinator, to your point. But this isn't football. It doesn't work that way. And as you mentioned, Tibbs probably won't listen to whoever the quote unquote offensive coordinator would be, especially if you're plucking somebody out of Europe. You know what I mean? Or if you're getting somebody from college or whatever to try to run a new innovative offense. And he's like, I don't give a shit. Like, I know what I know. I know what got me here, whatever. He's stubborn in that way. Listen, a lot of us in the Northeast were stubborn. It is what it is.
Bingo.
But I think, who is the coach is my question, because Knick fans have told Dex and I, Michael Malone. And I'm like, you're going to run into the same issues. The reason Michael Malone was wearing out his welcome in Denver, despite having won a championship 2 years ago, was that he and Calvin Booth would continually clash, because Calvin Booth was like, hey, play the guys I drafted. play the young guys. I'm not going to pay or overpay this person like Bruce Brown or Contavious Caldwell Pope. And then Mike Malone was like, no, I want to play veterans. I want to win. Calvin Booth is like, you can win with the young guys if you develop them. And the ownership group was like, all right, both of you get out of here. We're going to completely change this.
Sound familiar, by the way? Does that sound familiar? That type of coaching philosophy
The
or
push
anything
pull,
like that?
yeah. Like
Yeah.
it's like I get it. Michael Malone's from New York. And look, from a content perspective, I mean, he'd be great just because like the interviews, the sound bites, but like for the Knicks, like I don't think that's different enough. That's not like the dramatic change you're talking about, Andrew. Like Michael Malone's going to be too similar. Taylor Jenkins is the only other coach where I'm like, oh, that's interesting, but are you really gonna one? I don't know if we understand like how good he is or isn't, but two, do you know that he's a fit for this roster? I do have questions to your point about whether or not Tom Thibodeau is right for this roster, but I also think the roster kind of needs some retooling around the edges, which the Pacers really exposed in the conference finals to begin with.
Yeah, I'm as far as who's the next head coach, I'm of the belief that, well, to your point about Mike Malone, those also make me laugh. The suggestions of Mike Malone that's just, you want to fire Tibbs and hire Tibbs. Got it. Okay.
Because he got a title. And I'm like, yo, he's not coming with Nikola Jokic.
Like, bingo. Like, if he's coming here and he can push the play Jokic button, then by all means, get me Mike Malone. I think I'm of the belief that if you're going to change, to your point, change the entire look of this team. Taylor Jenkins was playing an 11-man rotation this year. It was a great thing. And you talk to people in Memphis, they'll tell you this. It was great for guys 4 through 11, but guys 1, 2, and 3, and the lack of ball screens and how Ja Morant was performing over the first 60 some odd games this season,
and his availability.
Well, like yeah. there's that other part, like that would be a shift. I'm not 100% sure, to your point, that is an appropriate an appropriate fit for this roster either. I think my buddy Sean
is Jalen Brunson signing off on that.
So there is that element too. But real quick, my buddy Sean with a W, Mr. Hardy, suggested Terry Stotts, who like coached Dame Lillard all those years, has been an assistant at Golden State. So maybe he brings some offensive creativity for a small point guard that is elite offensively and may know how to create a defense that works with Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson. I think to your point about Brunson and whether he signs off on it, look, he came here to play for Tom Thibodeau. The man visited the Brunsons in the hospital when Jalen was born. This is a family affair. It's why it's so much more complicated than just do what the Nuggets did, do what the Grizzlies did. The Grizzlies replaced Taylor Jenkins' entire staff with the next staff that they wanted to hire for Taylor Jenkins, like before the season. And then they were just waiting for the right opportunity, but they were the 2 seed for most of the year. When they got to a point where they were losing enough that it felt appropriate, they fired him. The Mike Malone thing, to your point, it sounds like ownership wanted to end that feud very early on, but they kept winning. So like winning cured everything, which is why I think Leon Rose is in an interesting spot. They keep advancing farther into the playoffs. The East is wide open next year. So you can look at it as, hey, maybe we're more opportunistic next year with a little more experience with our core that we've built, our best 7. We add some depth around the edges. And with this group I believe in, we can go get it. Or is next year such an opportunity that you need to upgrade the head coach too? And upgrade's an interesting thing because I don't want to be disrespectful to Tibbs and how good I think he is.
Sure. Yeah.
So it's why like the Mark Jackson thing has never made sense to me. He's not Mark Jackson, like at all. Like, again, you're telling on yourself with your intelligence if you call him Mark Jackson. The comp I've always used is when the Clippers went from Doc Rivers to Ty Lue. Take one good head coach and replace him with another good head coach that's younger, more creative, willing to adjust more, and it's just a different look on a very good roster going from one good philosophy to another, that happens in the NBA. I don't know who that guy is out there. Like maybe Terry Stotts is. That's not my job to really know who the guy is. It's why I think this is a Leon Rose decision. I do recognize that there is a decision to be made here. It's not as clear cut. Of course, you keep Tibbs, but I do recognize what the opportunity could be next year, and it's why I'll be fascinated to see what they do.
Leon Rose / James Dolan, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe Dolan steps in and says, I am making a decision. I happen to think James Dolan got 9 playoff ticket sales. So like 9 home playoff ticket sales that he was allowed to take advantage of. And the Garden was packed as a result. So I don't think he's that upset with the result of this playoffs. Like you gave him 9 playoff home games, and the literally the city was renaming street signs, like streets, after Knicks players. I think he's okay from an entertainment standpoint, which for my money is where I think he cares the most. And like he went on the roommates pod. I think he's enjoying things.
That's true. I mean, look, there's a thin line between stability and being resistant to change. And I wonder like how this is going to go. Because to your point, 3 straight playoff trips with it, which they haven't done in over a decade. And there was game 6 against the Heat, game 7 against the Pacers, now game 6 against the Pacers, but in the next round, to your point, they're like, you're getting a little closer. And if you're looking at the landscape of the NBA and in the Eastern Conference, I mean, we know Jason Tatum is going to miss at least most of next year, if not the entire thing. I still think Boston actually could be pretty good without him, but pretty good being like a 5 or top 5 seed, 6 seed, something like that. I don't know if they're a play-in team, but look, there's another injury. We don't know what their offseason is going to look like. Cleveland, I'm expecting to be good again, but the Knicks could beat them in a playoff series. Indy, they're already close. We'll see if Indy makes another move. There's rumors about them spending and being a tax team, which doesn't happen in Indiana very often. But we expect that they'll be back in the mix. Don't know what's going to happen with Milwaukee. And then you have other teams that are going to be ambitious like Detroit and Orlando, perhaps Miami, perhaps Atlanta. But if you're the Knicks, you're looking at all that like, yeah, this should be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference. Again, in the regular season, then the playoffs, you're probably looking at finals or bust. So to your point, I would agree with that.
That's where I am. Yeah.
To shift, what is, in looking at next season, and I will ask you about one person in particular to end this. You know who that is. But the single biggest thing that they need to address for next year is what? For some people, it is coaching, and for some people, it is getting a star. I think it's something else. Where are you at with this?
A 5th starter that sends Josh Hart back to the bench. If I'm looking at this and it's not a coaching conversation, you either need to go get Tibbs a rim protector that he trusts that can play 65 games, which is why like I recognize what Mitchell Robinson was in the playoffs. I think at this point in his career, he is an elite role player that comes in and plays 20 to 25 minutes. It's what I think he has in his tank at the moment, where you put him in for a 6-7 minute stretch and he'll wreak havoc and potentially be the best player on the floor. We talk about gravity and impact a lot when we analyze basketball teams and basketball players, and seeing Mitchell Robinson's gravity in how teams are face guarding him, which allows for Josh Hart or whoever else to fly in for rebounds because the other team is dedicating so much of their attention to Mitch over those 6-7 minutes that he's in. I think Mitch at this point is the perfect backup center, maybe the best backup center in the NBA for whatever that qualification is worth. So you have to go get a starting center if you think that is what you need. I personally would love for them to go find a 2 guard if they can, with the limited resources that they have, that allows them to play more 5 out, that doesn't give up a ton on the defensive end that I really thought Josh Hart gave up this year. Those back cuts were mesmerizing to watch, how often he was getting beat backdoor.
Yeah. Bad in the Pacers series.
Really bad in the Pacers series. And it's honestly a trend that started during the regular season too. That's that true. You recognized that what he's bringing you on the rebounding side of things, it's just not an advantage when he's also like bleeding points on the defensive end, you know? So I look at because I think Josh Hart falls in the same Mitch category of elite role player, could probably play 25 to 30, probably should play 25 to 30. And unfortunately, he was asked to play 38 to 40 a lot this season. So I got to go a wing personally, but a fifth starter that reshuffles the lineup and puts everybody back where they need to be, which is Mr. Robinson coming off the bench, Josh Hart coming off the bench. And if you're telling me that your bench is Mitch, Josh Hart, Deuce McBride, and a fourth person, like a point guard, maybe it's Tyler Kolek, maybe it's a name that we're not thinking of that replaces Campaign, and you now put a two-way, well, not a two, I'm trying not to be greedy because everybody's looking for a two-way wing,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
But like a two guard that you can now put into the starting five, like that to me is the upgrade that you need. You know, unfortunately, my pick would be Dante DiVincenzo, but that's not happening. But yeah, that's where I'm going. What about you?
Okay. Before I start, let's actually pull up the table of contracts because this is very, very, very important moving forward for people to know. Let's actually adjust that a little bit. Okay. So where I'm at with this team is, and the finances matter a ton because you want to avoid second apron. You probably want to avoid the first apron to have access to more exceptions as well. And in looking at what they can do financially, I'm not going to bore people with like all the CBA details and what have you, because it's a lot. It's just a lot to go through. And it's gonna be the reason that things do it and don't happen for a lot of teams league wide. To me, the main thing is depth, Andrew. Like I think the Celtics series and the Pacers series in particular really showcase that you have to have the ability to go 10, 11 deep. 11, obviously, you don't want to have to go to your 11th guy, but in case of emergency, because Indiana does that. Indiana leading up to the series, they had played 11 guys multiple times. Jarris Walker had missed a couple of games, and he's going to miss a couple in the finals now because he got hurt. But like you mentioned it, they had the option of going from Thomas Bryant to Tony Bradley. And they were like, hey, Thomas Bryant doesn't have it these first couple games. We'll try out Tony Bradley. Tony Bradley gets hurt, back to Thomas Bryant, and then he hits 3 threes for the first time in 2.5 years. And, he helped them ultimately win the game. Like, they have the ability to do that. Whereas if the Knicks ran into a jam at center, you're kind of running into, hey, Ariel Hogporty, hope you're ready.
Yeah.
or Precious Achua, who is 6'8", maybe. And in this series, that probably wouldn't have killed you that much, but still. All right. Karl-Anthony Towns obviously has a massive contract. OG Anunoby, Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges. There's an extension question there that I'm fascinated by because I have no idea what that looks like. There's a world where he gets probably somewhere in between Jalen Brunson and OG Anunoby, and I think a lot of Knicks fans would be sick by that, but we don't know. I'm sure if I'm the agent, I look at the Celtics series in particular, and I'm like, hey, look at what he did here,
Yeah. They traded 5 picks for him. He has the leverage here. Like,
that's right.
The PR of not extending the guy that you traded your entire draft capital for is not great. We all have eyes. We all understand why. I do wonder how much wiggle room there is between the max and what like the Knicks might want to offer him, which to your point is probably somewhere in between Brunson and Anunoby.
Yeah. I do wonder if Jalen is like, hey, I took less for you to not have to take the max because we need to build a better team, but OG Anunoby took more money. So it's like, does that really matter?
Right.
Jalen ultimately made a sacrifice, but Mikal's still going to get paid more than this 24.9 million next year. Like whatever the extension is, I'm guessing. Like I'd be surprised if it's not at least 10 million more annually. We'll see what happens there. And here's the sort of bind that they're in. Bind might be too strong of a word, but it's a bit of a quagmire, which is probably a worse word to use. Josh Hart, 19.4 million. Mitchell Robinson, 12.9 million next year. Mitchell Robinson's expiring. Josh Hart is not. But the reason, Andrew, I'm bringing that up is because if you're going to fortify your bench by not doing just veteran minimums, maybe a little bit of the MLE, whatever MLE mid-level
It's a
exception they have
taxpayer.
access
Yeah.
to. Yeah, it's going to be a taxpayer one for sure, which is not that much. Although you can get somebody good from that. You could split it up into multiple players, whatever. But like, are they going to have to move a Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson to fortify their bench? Is this an area where like you turn Josh Hart or Mitchell Robinson into two guys potentially? Like, I hate when Restream does this with the balloon shit, the thumbs up. It's so stupid. But like, yeah, that. But what do you think? Do you feel like they're gonna be in a cap situation where they're gonna have to move one of those guys? Or are you content with, hey, veteran minimums, use your exceptions, maybe do something shrewd around the margins. You try to hit a home run with the veteran minimum or two, and that's it.
So I'll say this: Mitch is an expiring contract going into next year because and it's a descending contract that he signed. So it's actually after this playoff, I'd have to think it's a very attractive contract that you're getting elite role player play for that type of money, and a contender might want that type of guy on their team, or just anybody might want that type of guy on their team.
I have a team in mind.
Well, so I'm curious what team you're talking about, because like the Knicks might want an elite role player at that money on their team, especially if he's going to do what he did in the playoffs. So let's start here. What team are you thinking of?
The Lakers really need a center.
They do. So what are you getting?
That's the issue.
I think they'll go more the Jalen Duren route for what it's
probably worth. Because if you're the Knicks, it's like, I'm not trading Mitchell Robinson for Gabe Vincent and maybe Dalton Connect.
Right.
Now it's interesting, but then it's like, all right, now I have a lot of guards. You know what I mean? And Connect is an interesting piece because one, they tried to trade him already. Two, he's a shooter. And three, he's on a rookie contract for 3 more years. And these are the kinds of deals that you have to win. Like, this is ultimately how Indiana has been able to have such a deep bench, and even the Miami team beforehand, and even Boston before that, like, they were getting production from Ben Mathurin this year. The Heat were getting it from Gabe Vincent and Max Strus, who were on very cheap salaries. So if I'm the Knicks, like, I want something different from Mitchell Robinson. I've thrown out the name Jordan Clarkson before. Like, this was a trade deadline name that I was throwing out there because he's like 14-ish million. And when I look at their bench, I'm like, that's kind of the scoring pop that you need coming off of it.
Yeah. I hate to bring it back to a conversation we just had, but like, is Tibbs going to play a Dalton Connect? Is Tibbs going to play a guy that might be a liability defensively? And it's why the examples you're going back to, the Eric Spoelstras, the Rick Carlisles, they're willing to go deep into their bench if something isn't working with guys that Tibbs may or may not trust. And we saw the Cam Reddish thing, how that went. Now, I think Tibbs may have been exonerated by.
No, he was right.
Yeah,
all the Cam Reddish T-Mac comparisons coming out of Duke are very dubious.
There are some very interesting Cam Reddish conversations that happened over the course of a year and a half, and I thought he played as many meaningful minutes as he should have,
as he deserved.
As he deserved. Personally, I think it's important for Leon in considering moving a guy like Mitch, who Tibbs obviously loves and would play a ton and fits the style and the culture. If this is your coach, you have to go get like a Tibbs guy then. And so what you're getting back now that you're at the place where every move matters because you're very limited in your resources, you can't just be like, oh, Dalton Connect might be somebody good. No, you have to know with your head coach, you'll play him, right? He'll obviously play a Gabe Vincent, a guy that could be a point guard, a backup point guard, could play with Brunson,
playoff and finals experience. Also.
Bingo. So like, there's stock there. It's just an understanding of, will he, like, all your assets have to now lead to rotation players that can contribute. You're also talking about Mitch and Josh Hart. I've been wrong before. I thought Dante was untouchable. I thought they'd never make a trade with the Nets. I thought they'd never make a trade with the Raptors when they were in civil court. And all of those things happened. I have to think that the co-host of the co-host of the Roommates podcast, Jalen Brunson's best friend, is off limits, and more specifically, like Tom Thibodeau's like the teacher's pet thing gets brought out a lot about both of them. That
Sure.
like Tibbs would lay in front of the airplane tarmac if Josh Hart was getting on a plane to go to another city that he was traded. So I have to think Josh Hart is not a conversation to be had within the Knicks walls, but I also recognize I've been wrong about what I think are off limits from this franchise before.
I don't want to apply everything to the Luka Doncic trade, and Danny Collins, I'm gonna get to your comment in a second. I don't want to apply everything to the Luka Doncic trade, but man,
Luka got traded.
The way things are looking with the CBA, like a lot of teams are just going to be trading people you wouldn't expect for weird reasons because they just want to get out of the tax.
I agree. I think that's why the Mikal conversation is very interesting. Do they turn Mikal into 2 picks and 2 rotation players, or look to go a different direction there rather than Josh? I can't believe I'm saying this, rather than Josh Hart, because I agree with you. He was essential to leading the Celtics.
That could be the answer, though, because it's like you can't, in this new era, it's difficult to have a lot of your salaries tied up in just a couple of guys or a few guys in this case. It just is. Danny, real quick, before I get to some more money talk. Sorry, guys. The former Denver coach, Michael Malone, he's referring to, won a championship by creating a 2-man monster through a multi-talented and uber-talented scoring guard. He's Steve Kerr to Thibodeau as Mark Jackson. What I would tell you, as Andrew completely face plants, what I would tell you, Danny, is look, I think Michael Malone is a good coach, but Tom Thibodeau's never had Nikola Jokic or Jamal Murray, for that matter, as a combination. So, there's not enough of a gap there, I think, to make you're not going to have a philosophical change. And again, Michael Malone is not coming with said 2-man monster. You know, the 2-man monster here is Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns, and they're both all NBA this year. I mean,
Michael Malone's assistant head coach just got 1 win away from dethroning a team that won 68 games and getting to the conference finals. Like, how much of that was Mike Malone again? How much of their success was the 2-man game that he created?
Depending
and like Danny, thank you for watching, but like,
yeah, absolutely.
I just said what I thought about the Mark Jackson comp. I would proceed with caution when calling a guy that's won as many games as he's won and turned around as many franchises as he's won, Mark Jackson, who hasn't had a job since like he was telling Steph Curry, the best off-ball movement shooter of all time, to run ISO. Like, there's just a certain level of intelligence you have to have when talking about these coaches that needs to be understood. He's not that level of head coach. He's not a replacement level head coach. He's a very good head coach that you could upgrade if you wanted to a different very good head coach.
Yeah. It philosophically is too similar. That's really the point. Let's look at some other, because look, this is the Mitchell Robinson range right here, because he's gonna get 12.9. You see it right here. This is sort of the range, and it's like, again, I don't know if Mitchell Robinson is going to be like a 1v1 trade because they ultimately need depth. But to give people an idea, like, obviously you're not getting Victor Wembanyama, so ignore him. But this is the range of salaries that you're looking at, and it's like Cole-Anthony. That's pretty funny because Orlando does need a center, and they're looking for maybe a upgrade at one of their center spots because Mo Wagner is hurt, and I don't know if Goga Bitadze is going to be there long term, although his contract isn't bad. But like, this is sort of it, and there's nobody here outside of, funny enough, maybe Dante DiVincenzo, where you're like, oh, definitely trade Mitchell Robinson for that person. Like, I just don't see it. Like, a lot of these people, like Robert Williams is cooked, Rashawn Holmes is kind of cooked. Kelly Olynyk is kind of cooked. Like, and then over here is Reece Shea, just got drafted number 1 overall. Kobe White is honestly going to get a nice extension this summer. And if you go on down the list, if you're talking about, okay, you're going to break this up into multiple players, Sam Hauser's someone that the Celtics are going to move. Don't know why you're going to trade with them. And don't know why they're doing business with you. do you really want Caleb Martin and like someone on a rookie scale contract because his contract is, a couple more years? Like, it's funny because like it's so unpredictable. I don't know. Is there anything here, Andrew, that jumps out to you in terms of like this is somebody the Knicks should target because of affordability? Should we even go lower on the list?
No, not. This is because you also have to assume that the other team wants Mitchell Robinson, like
That's
an
the issue.
injury-plagued backup center.
That's why I
A
mentioned the
lot.
Lakers. And let's also note, like a lot of these teams are ultimately going to have to be 3-4 teamers.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I think look, Dante's the perfect world here. I mean, there's a lot I like Goga Batadze. I like the theory of George Niang, although I think he's like the definition of a 15-minute player, but maybe that's what you need. Lonzo's always been interesting. It's good to see him back and playing basketball again. I think he would Tibbs would love him. Honestly, if he can rediscover his 3-point shot, which I think he did this year. I actually don't know what the numbers ended up being for him on the season. He's the perfect wing next to me. Oh my gosh, next to Brunson, next to Anunoby and Mikal Bridges. I just don't like these are all conversations like this level of the league that you're looking at.
yeah.
Where I don't know, like the Hoop Collective podcast, they suggested Al Horford as like a backup center. So maybe you're trading Mitchell Robinson to upgrade your wing depth. Like you've got Isaac Okoro highlighted. We've talked about him in Knicks film school for a couple of years now. I don't know if the Cavs are making any type of trade with the Knicks at this point to potentially get better.
That's a good point.
This is the level. Believe me, this is the level. So
yeah, I mean, I think get to Angel's comment actually because he says something interesting here. How about New Orleans' fire sale? What's possible with that? I don't know if it's going to be a fire sale, but I mean, they might have to. I would, by the way, if I'm New Orleans.
Can I tell you where I would consider New Orleans in the context of what the Knicks should do?
Yeah, as I pull up their cap.
Well, I don't even know if you have to go that far. It's very simple. What they have that's most attractive to me is in players. They have Milwaukee's picks. If I'm getting something from New Orleans, it's Milwaukee's picks, and then I'm redirecting them with Cat for Giannis. And I don't think any of that is realistic, but that to me is the most valuable asset that New Orleans has.
All right. You've teed me up for the end. Should the Knicks enter the Giannis sweepstakes?
I mean, they should. Whether they'll win it is a different conversation. Like you can sign up for the contest that they're in the mall and see if. Yes, I'd love to enter to win a free car. You might email and put me on a mailing list that I'll never get off for the rest of my life. Sure, but the chance is a free car, and in this case, you can enter and call Milwaukee and say, "Hey,
I hate those so
they're
much.
the worst,
you don't
man.
understand.
I keep getting these things in the mail, and it's like, damn, I shouldn't have signed up for that thing."
Exactly.
It's the very definition of 2025 frustration.
Let me also mention before.
Yeah, go ahead.
Right before you go, just for context on this, teams that people think will be involved in Giannis, and there will be a lot. If still if he hasn't said anything yet, don't know yet. The Nets, who are in the same city, have 31 draft picks over the next 7 years. Half of them in the first round, I think 15. So they could, as Brian Lewis from the Post, who I work with, pointed out, they could trade 8 first-round picks and be pick neutral going forward. Yeah. And that's sort of the attraction there for Milwaukee. And Giannis loves New York, he says. New York has multiple businesses there, has a home there. A lot of NBA players love hanging out there, obviously. Obviously, large Greek and large Nigerian community. So things in the Knicks and Nets favor. For the Nets, it's like they have the clean slate and all the picks. And with the Knicks, they don't have as many picks as before, but they do have like an easy route to salary, which makes Mikal interesting because is it going to be like Cav, going to be Mikal, G, whatever. Other teams, Raptors, I guess you got to include the Lakers because they
got Luka. Like they can. The funny thing is the salary in a Lakers Giannis trade is LeBron, which would blow my mind. Would just blow my mind if like LeBron got traded for Giannis.
And from there, it's kind of murky. The
San
Heat will
Antonio's the big
obviously
one. San Antonio's
the
the big
He-
one to me.
the Heat and the Spurs also. The Heat, I think, are unlikely, but Bam and Giannis do share an agent. And they have a financial way to get there. This is not as many draft picks, though they have more than they used to. And the Spurs, obviously, because the Spurs can just get everyone at this point. Okay, so you think the Knicks should enter?
They should enter it.
With what?
What's available? Like the karl-Anthony Towns contract.
Oh, you're like all in. You're like
just
everyone, but you're like anyone but Brunson, basically.
Basically, yeah. Like that's if you're entering the sweepstakes, you don't say there are guys off limits. I've heard the conversations out there that Brunson shouldn't even be off limits. I think those are the dumbest conversations to potentially have.
I heard
like
that
you don't put your team's captain, because then what's the point of watching sports? Like you don't name a guy a captain and then the following year trade him. I don't care who it's for. Like if you gave me prime LeBron, then I'd get over it. But Giannis is going to be 30. And I've now developed an attachment as a fan to Jalen Brunson.
30.
What's up?
Is 30.
He just got older, folks. Like
he's going to be 31 in December.
I am of the belief that if you're entering the Giannis sweepstakes, you put all your cards on the table, especially, and this is why I think they'll lose any Giannis sweepstakes. Other teams can make better offers. I'm staring at San Antonio with the number 2 pick in the draft with the reigning rookie of the year and a ton of draft capital. And you can just say to Milwaukee, here's a bunch of picks. Here's your backcourt for the next 10 years that you can sell to your fan base. You can now reset while you wait for all of your picks that went to New Orleans. Like wait for those things to expire, but now at least you're building something. And you're not like, you don't need, I'm not gonna say you don't necessarily need draft picks, but if what you get is like Dylan Harper and Stephon Castle to build around, then yeah, that's something that you can look at and say to your fan base, look, Giannis is gone. We're going to look to move Dame as well. But here's the next decade in Milwaukee Bucks sports. And it's built around these two guys and the assets we got in the trade. You know, it's very similar to the Nets going and doing the deal with the Celtics, and the Celtics being like, hey, that Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett era, that was fun. It's unfortunately over, but here's all the assets we got. We're going to use it to rebuild, and it turns into Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. That's how Milwaukee could potentially walk away from a Giannis trade, and I don't think the Knicks can give them that.
But you're saying if it's a sweepstakes, if this becomes a situation where Giannis is like, send me to New York.
That's the only way I think he gets to New York. I'll say is that he like demands send me to New York. I also think he's a competitor.
Yeah, I'm not sure he's gonna
like. I don't know if he wants to go spend the next 3 years in Brooklyn. No disrespect to Brooklyn, but like you're not. It's not even like a little brother thing that I'm trying to say. You're not.
But he
close.
has to be there with somebody.
You're not. You weren't even a playing team last year, and they don't have any assets like Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper or the number 2 pick in the draft. The Knicks at least could give Giannis the stability of you just made the conference finals last year. Come make us better. And the Bucks would then be in this kind of the same situation they're in. Damn, we have to figure out how to pay Cat, and
that's the issue.
You know,
with Milwaukee,
so
it's like I don't
like we're gonna just be a 5 seed. Like we're trading Giannis to be a 5 seed. Whereas if they make the trade with San Antonio, that's a reset. You can sell that to your fan base. Hope is a very easy thing to sell with young players. We've seen it in New York for years. Shout out to RJ Barry.
God. Frank Ntilikina,
dude,
Kevin Knox.
I'm not even going that level of clear busts that people hung on to for too long. I'm saying
they were a clear bust for everybody.
So like the good to okay NBA starters, like the Quickleys, the Quentin Grimes, the RJ Barretts that everybody thought had all-star and superstar potential that went elsewhere, and then we saw what like all-stars and superstars looked like, right?
Yeah.
And then like it's those levels of guys. You could sell that hope that Stephon Castle is a multi-time all-star. Dylan Harper was the 2nd pick in the draft. You might have the next Jalen Brunson or Cade Cunningham. Like you can sell that to your fan base, as well as the draft capital you get back as a pivot from one of the 25 greatest players ever in Giannis. So that I think is an easier sell, which I think you have to consider. And to your point about the aprons, like, we're also going to get under the tax. We're also going to be very young and cheap while we, let New Orleans draft our draft capital with our picks for the next couple of years. So I think other teams will beat the Knicks' best offer in a Giannis sweepstakes, and that's where I am with that.
I agree. I think they need the scales tilted in their favor, which, look, if you're a contender in a big market, you can get that tilted in your favor in New York City. We're going to wrap here, take a couple comments. Danny says, Josh Hart is Russell Westbrook with zero accountability. You can't hold others accountable if you refuse to hold him accountable.
Danny, I agree with that. Like, I do agree with, like, Josh Hart needs to be held as accountable as everybody else on the roster. I don't disagree with that.
We also held them accountable here. We talked about how
we did.
poor
The
defensively,
head coach
but
needs to.
I know. Yeah, I know
I
he's
think
talking
Danny's
about
alluding to.
Yeah. I think that's fair. Angel agrees, says Kelly is beyond cooked. He also says a bunch of Tibbs players are on the Pelicans roster. Herb Jones is an interesting name. I wonder if they'd be open to floating him around, but he's going to have a sweepstakes if that's the case. He says he can sign up for a Timothy Chalamet Lecolette contest, which I thought was pretty funny. Danny Collins is with you. I'm bringing in Horford potentially. If you even said that as an endorsement, that was more.
I would be open to it. I recognize we're going to talk about a 15-minute.
It'd be great for Cat, by the way.
He loves fellow culturally. Dominican. He played with him on the Dominican national team. Like, I do recognize they're friends and they're close. What does Al Horford have left is my question. Does he have... is this just going to turn into Derrick Rose at the very end, where we're 20 games in, he can't stay in front of anybody, the shot's not there anymore, and you used that asset, that whatever free agent money you have, or that exception money you have, on a guy that can't play anymore?
He would be platooning with Ariel Hawkport,
right?
Because he doesn't play back to back.
And I wonder what Tibbs would play more of, the rookie or the NBA veteran with a pedigree.
All right, follow Andrew Claudio. If you're watching this, you may already. He's got a lot of shit going on. He's got other shows to get to. I have other things to get to as well. But we appreciate you guys for checking in. We'll have more finals and off-season content on this channel moving forward, along with some boxing and some WNBA when I get around to it. Thank you, Andrew. Catch him at Knicks Film School and Game Theory, you just said.
Indeed.
With Sam Vecini, which is one of the better basketball pods out there. Thank y'all for watching. If you're watching to this point later, drop a comment. We'll get to it.